Welcome back to ESPR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted as always to be joined by Danny. Danny, not a cheery video for us, which is not like us. We're always full of good positive news here at ESPR after last weekend's undercard. Alycia Baumgardner has had an adverse finding in a drugs test. This is a couple of weeks after the a similar story with Dillian Whyte. Obviously, we've had the Conor Benn story with lasted nearly a year now. So it's interesting to get your opinion on this. It feels like this is happening more, and I worry if this is more of a trend in the sport. Before we get started, with recently, Alycia Baumgardner has released a statement. It's quite a long statement, but I'm going to whiz through it. I think it's important to read out in full, so please bear with me. On August the 12th, 2023, I was informed that an A sample I provided on July 12th, 2023 resulted in an adverse analytical finding of mestrolone and methylidone, acete metabolite, two substances I've never heard of or used in any way. The sample provided immediately after my fight on July 15th, 2023 tested clean and negative all banned substances, as did my sample on June 16th, 2023, which makes the July 12th result essentially impossible. To be abundantly clear, I know that I have never would and never will take this or any other drug. Not only would doing so be unethical, it would also be completely contrary to how I've trained my entire career. As a professional athlete, I alone am responsible for what I put into my body, and my body is a temple. I'm also a proud role model for any young woman or girl who seeks to follow in my footsteps. I take those responsibilities very seriously, which is why I know that I did not and would never put these substances in my body. I have a lot more to say about my journey and why the idea of me taking an illegal, banned, or even dangerous substance would never make sense. So I have no intention of sitting back in silence and letting this play out in speech marks. I plan to keep you updated every step of the way as I work to ensure my reputation as a clean athlete remains fully intact. Quite a long statement there from Baumgardner. If I could get your reaction to the news and the statement, Danny, that would be great.
Yeah, the statement probably best to go into first of all the same old tropes we hear once a fighter returns, an adverse analytical finding. It's this cookie cutter response we always seem to get, and I always enjoy when they mention the tests that they've returned that weren't positive. It's like fucking Harold Shipman in court saying, "Look at all the days I went into my surgery and didn't kill anyone." Like, completely irrelevant. In terms of the news, like, you become so desensitized to it, and I suppose I can't remember what video I was watching, and it was in relation to the Dillian Whyte one a few days ago. It's like, in a way, you should look at the positive tests in a good way, because it means you're catching more people and it's more of a deterrent that way, which I suppose is the optimistic way to look at it. But you sort of wonder, I mean, we don't know the details. We have to sort of protect ourselves that way, but you wonder how far this sort of goes. And after I saw the news and the statements that mentioned the substances she tested positive for, and I'm not going to try and pronounce them, I looked into one of them. I think it was the first one you mentioned, and like, it's a fairly powerful testosterone booster, which like adds a sort of even more worrying layer to this. It's not as if it was something, as far as I understand it, I'm not a pharmacist, that she was using to cut weight or something that she was using for recovery. It's something like it makes you bigger, stronger, more powerful, and more dangerous. And she's a big puncher, Alycia Baumgardner, and we don't need to go into the dangers of boxing, but just really sad, tiring news.
Yeah, Alycia Baumgardner is a world champion. She's kind of at the peak of her powers now. Obviously, had that win over Michaela Mayer last October in London. Became undisputed champion in the next fight at the beginning of this year, and then defended her undisputed championship against Christina Linodatu last month in a fight that was fairly, lost one or two rounds, but was fairly one-sided. And Matchman released a statement as well. It was kind of just a very standard statement about kind of the facts, what's happened, not going to be making a comment. This is when we heard the news, that sort of thing. I don't think we really need to read that out. I think what I want to get to with you, Danny, is what is happening here? Because Baumgardner mentioned in a statement she's worked hard all of her career. She's and she's not going to she takes the sport very seriously. And this isn't me saying that she's kind of definitely innocent. It's me saying that I can't imagine personally taking performance enhancing drugs and then winning a fight and then hand on heart kind of being happy with that, if you know what I mean. And I just wonder, what I'm trying to get to is just what is happening here, because are all these fighters cheating? Like, did Conor Benn purposely take performance enhancing drugs? Did Dillian Whyte? Did Alycia Baumgardner? If the three of them say all have, then there's going to be more cases along the way. So I just wonder, what do you think's happening here? Do you think these fighters are taking these drugs? Do you think that something's going into their system without them knowing? What's your kind of gut feeling here for all three cases, not just this one?
It's a difficult one because no fighter, no athlete that I've ever seen has come out and says, okay, you got me, I was cheating. You know what I mean? And like, if you say you believe every single one, like, you're an idiot, you're a fool, like, you'd be gullible. I don't know, like, again, we're waiting the details to come out, but I know what you mentioned about how if you were taking an illicit substance and you want to fight, you wouldn't feel good about it. But if there is this conception that they're all on it, and that's what I've seen a lot of people coming out today, and you've seen before that, it's rampant in the sport, and like, all it takes is someone as a fighter's coming up, Alycia Baumgardner's coming up. There's people who are financially benefiting from her success, and they say, look, you're at a disadvantage if you don't take it, because everyone's taking it. And then it just feeds this cycle, and it could be anyone, or a fighter will justify it to themselves by saying, oh, well, the person I'm in the opposite corner is probably taking it. And it's just this sort of vicious cycle. That's one explanation. And fighters, you'll often hear about like how much the ego comes into it more than any other sport. And I think there's no point trying to like rationalize it in your own head. You know, people chat about how fighters will rationalize losses to them, and they'll do the same with stuff like this and in instance of cheating. Again, I'm not going to go through like case by case like what I necessarily think. I think when at the level of fighter they're at, you'd imagine in terms of contamination of say it be a supplement they're taking, surely at that level you've got people who are like checking every single possible thing that you're ingesting for that. I know that was Dylan White's excuse for his first test, so I don't know, mate. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say like, she's absolutely guilty of hanging out to dry, but like, if you ask my gut feeling, like, come on.
Yeah. I'm starting to get worried, to be honest with you. Because Alycia Baumgardner said, look, undisputed world champion, did potentially have had some very big fights coming up, potentially a fight against Amanda Serrano. Dillian Whyte, a high-profile fighter in the UK, was about to go into a massive fight against Anthony Joshua, as you know, was involved in a massive fight against Tyson Fury last year. Conor Benn, was about to fight Chris Eubank Jr. in a massive fight. I think this is going to kind of continue happening. I worry this is the beginning of more and more fighters being caught, and with all the other things that are wrong with boxing at the moment, whether it's inside the ring or outside the ring, I'm worried that this could be really kind of damaging, could put more people off, could put casual fans off the sport, could kind of have. There could be less trust in fighters, if that makes sense. Whenever a fighter wins, you'll have people saying, oh, well, I wonder if they're on drugs. And, would they have won this fight if they weren't on drugs? And people being accused of being on drugs when they're not. That's what I'm worried about. What are your thoughts? Are you worried as well? Do you accept this as part of the sport? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So on the face of it, if you reckon like there's more and more that's going to come out, you would think that could potentially act as a deterrent. But then you have to remember a lot of the time they don't actually face a ban because there's no one to issue a ban. If you get banned in one commission, you just go to another one. If you can fight as a foreign fighter, and you're like, there's so many ways around it, and I really don't know what the situation is. And we've got so many different like drug testing organizations that some aren't recognized by certain jurisdictions. And there's all these technicalities and loopholes that we've seen come up with the Conor Benn case. And with this one, it's even more ridiculous. This was a positive test. She returned before the fight. She was allowed to fight, and it doesn't come out till a month after. And this is this drug-free sport that Eddie Hearn has just been using for a lot of fights. They've been the sole drug testing for a lot of matchroom fights. I think I'm nearly sure it was the Regis Prograis fight. It was only drug-free sport. I think Victor Conte alleged that potentially the Joe Cordina Rakimov fight was only drug-free sport. And this is like who Eddie's been like bigging up. And then and I don't mean to turn this into like an attack on Eddie Hearn thing, but he like called into question Nevada and like, so who's the proper drug testing agencies of all these, like, you know what I mean? So it is concerning, mate, because like even I remember with the Dylan White one, I was at the pub after football when the news came out, and like it actually was a Sky Sports notification or whatever, which is fucking a rarity for boxing these days. So they all got it, and they all know why I'm like big into my boxing. They were saying, "Oh, Danny, Dylan White's just tested positive." Oh, typical boxing, and I'm almost embarrassed. You know what I mean? It's nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
So mate, like as if there wasn't enough putting casual fans off.
Yeah, no, it's all doom and gloom, and that's the worry that this sort of thing continues to happen. And there are some people out there who do think that the majority of fighters are on drugs. It's just a case of a cycle, and can you get? I feel like we're treading across icy water here, but I feel like there are some people who would say it's a case of how quickly you can get drugs in and out your cycle, i.e. when you take a test, be in a position where something can get out of your system so that you don't get a positive test.
And which fighters can afford the time to make sure everything's right? You need to take this, and this.
Right. So yeah, look, I think the only thing I've got to add is stay tuned for more failed drugs tests, see what happens next. Look, it would be nice to hear from figures in the sport on what we're going to do next. And also, look, you want to see these people get punished if you're failing drugs tests. We still don't know why Conor Benn failed 2 drugs tests, not one. He failed 2 drugs tests. Dillian White news came out a couple of weeks ago. I've not heard a lot. Don't know if you have.
Nope.
So what's kind of happening? Because in a different sport, if you failed a drugs test in football, you would get banned. You would face a punishment. Your lawyers wouldn't be able to talk you out for certain punishment. But it feels like in boxing, that can happen if you've got good enough lawyers. Then you can convince the authorities that you've done something.
Do you remember the sprinter Justin Gatlin? He raced against me. He got caught double. He got banned for like 5 years. He's just running a race. These people are going in to try and render people unconscious and serving retroactive bans, and they don't fight for a year anyway.
Exactly.
Piss take. It is a piss take.
Yeah, this isn't. It's not a game of tennis. It's not someone's riding on a bike. So yeah, you're right, mate. It's dangerous, mate. And I can't believe what I'm about to say. Do you remember when just Tony Bellew said, if someone hurts someone in a ring and then fails a drugs test, what is that considered? And also, how would you feel if you were on performance enhancing drugs and then you put someone in a coma? Because I feel like this video has gone on longer than we wanted to, and I feel like this is, some people might see this as an extreme opinion, but I do feel like that's the way it's going. And if you consider Dillian White, who's a heavyweight who can really punch hard, failed a drugs test, if he had gone in there on performance enhancing drugs, it could end badly, because it's, as you said, you're rendering someone unconscious here. So I'm very worried.
It could have already happened, mate. It could have already happened. Someone on performance enhancing drugs could have seriously injured someone. Like, don't get me wrong, as you understand it, the testing improves over time, but the doping improves with the testing, and you're always sort of playing catch up, is what the consensus is. So it could already happen, mate. And how do you, like, even like injuring someone in a fair fight must wrestle. I mean, we saw the feature with Chris Eubank Senior and Michael Watson, and he was torn up about what happened. Understandably, like, imagine if you've been cheating and you do that to someone. Like, I don't know. As you say, we've gone quite deep here, but it's 100% accurate.
Indeed, yeah. I think we'll leave things there, and we'll see what the news coming up. Look, there's been news about Conor Benn today about there being an appeal against him. So there's news there. Await on news on Dillian Whyte. Await on news on Alycia Baumgardner, and we'll see. We'll see. I think I'm looking forward to some questions being asked at media events very soon, I'm hoping. Danny, thank you very much for joining me. It's been a different sort of video we've made here, more of a podcast style, but it's been enjoyable. And I will speak to you again soon.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.